The Urantia book. the Urantia book. Paper 37, section 9. So permanent citizens of the local universe. On a planetary mission, the material son and daughter are commissioned to found the Adamic race of that world, a race designed eventually to amalgamate with the mortal inhabitants of that sphere. Planetary Adams are both descending and ascending sons, but we ordinarily class them as ascending. So Adam and Eve were on this sphere, the biblical information. They were on this sphere approximately 38,000 years ago. They were put here as full-grown human adults, and they began to have children. And it goes on from there. At the same time that Adam and Eve were here, there were already evolutionary mortal will creatures on the planet. From Andon and Fanta, the first two human mortals, evolutionary will creature being mortals on this planet. They give them the names Andon, the male, and Fanta, the female. They were the first two bona fide. They were the first two human will creatures. Not bona fide. They were the first two human will beings, will being creatures on Urantia. They do describe the area they were in. So Iraq and those two rivers that run there, they put in something of a description of the area. So that's true. So, from close to 1 million years ago until 38,000 years ago, Adam and Eve showed up. The story goes on from there. It's in the Urantia book. Paper 38, The Ministering Spirits of the Local Universe. Section 1, Origin of Seraphim. 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 Seraphim are created by the universe mother spirit and have been projected in unit formation 41,472 at a time. So I'm sure there's a really good reason why it's 41,472 at a time. Seraphim, humans, evolutionary will creatures, you, me, anyone, midway creatures, which is also discussed in the book, material sons, we are all of the same order of being, more or less. Different functions, different abilities, different things we do as far as 3 different types of beings, but all part of the same order, I would say, more or less. And ascending sons. Seraphim would be the next higher order of beings, angels, the common angel, a seraphim. And the universe mother spirit makes these beings all by herself. She is the co-maker, co-ruler of a local universe. This local universe is called Nebadon, and she all by herself makes the seraphim in large numbers. So symbolically on this world, a queen bee who births a tremendous number of worker bees. That would be definitely made in the image of God. Everything in nature, everything humans do, evolutionary will creature, human beings do, everything that takes place on this material world or any material world in creation, it's always symbolic of spiritual truths. Always. I would say. Symbolic in some sense. Imperfect, very often grossly imperfect, but symbolic nonetheless. So a real clear example is how if the creative mother spirit births 41,472 seraphim at a time to give to a human evolutionary world for what the angels do on this world, most definitely. I don't think they mentioned this particular comparison in the Urantia book, but it's real obvious that a queen bee in a hive making worker bees and whatever other types of bees that queen bee makes, I don't know, I'm not sure, but I know the queen bee gives birth to a tremendous number of offspring. Same for like there are certain fish in the ocean that give birth to a tremendous number of offspring, whether it's little eggs, whether it's one mother shaking off 10,000 eggs or whatever. I've seen nature shows, that type of thing. That would definitely be symbolic of the highest spiritual truth about that is the universe mother spirit creating seraphim. I would say. And now and then they'll give an example like that in the Urantia book. I think I'm trying to think that I know there's one or two. The butterfly, they mention man coming into his fullness of goodness of being in terms of character and love and goodness and morality and things of this nature. Man coming into the fullness of the goodness of his being would be like a butterfly, who comes from the cocoon. They also mention the tadpole going from a tadpole to a frog, like a human develops in terms of their character, things like this. There's a couple of lines like that. So a few times, at least those two times, if any more, they give examples like that in the Urantia book. And you can see how the lowest order of creation would be like a queen bee or a butterfly or a tadpole. And then the Urantia book describes the highest orders of creation in terms of personal beings. Nevertheless, in dealing with sex creatures, it is our custom to speak of those beings of more direct descent from the Father and the Son as the sons of God, while referring to the children of the Spirit as the daughters of God. Angels are therefore commonly designated by feminine pronouns on the sex planets. So, as far as mortal understanding of the angelic realm and thinking of them as female, that's accurate. And the Urantia book talks about seraphim as positive and negative, and yes, indeed. Oh, there's the sentence right there. They're not male and female, as are the material sons and the mortal races. Seraphim are negative and positive. 38, paper 38, section 9, paragraph 10. On normal worlds, the primary midwayers maintain their service as the intelligence core and as celestial entertainers in behalf of the planetary prince, while the secondary ministers continue their cooperation with the Adamic regime of furthering the cause of progressive planetary civilization. So they mentioned the creation of the midway creatures here. It's definitely discussed in other parts of the book too. This goes back to the times of Caligastia, the defaulted rebellion. The defaulted rebellion, that's not a word, but planetary prince of Urantia from 500,000 years ago, 250,000 years ago is when the rebellion occurred. He showed up here 500,000 years ago, 250,000 years ago, the rebellion occurred. 500,000 years ago, somewhere in that, or 250,000 years ago, somewhere in that whole time period, I believe the midway creatures all come from the 100 mortal visible assistants, higher mortals from mansion worlds and whatnot, but not fused with their adjusters on this planet, Urantia. The midway creatures come from those 100 mortal assistants. And something about when the mortal assistants, 50 men, 50 women, paired up, had children. 3 were normal. 1 was not visible at all times, although visible to them. They all have different powers in those days. So, whereas the planetary prince, for example, he can't be seen by mortals, but he sees everything. This is true for like virtually all spirit beings from Seraphim on up. But, so whatever. Like, for example, I know they say in the book something like Adam and Eve, when they were on this planet roughly 38,000 years ago, they could see the planetary prince, whereas others couldn't. Eve had this ability to talk to her children, her direct children, by mental telepathy, even though these children were far away from wherever Eve was. I believe there's a line like that in the book. So these beings of different times, different ages in the past on this planet had different powers along those lines. So something about every 4th creature born to those, the 100, they're called, the 100 higher mortal assistants to the planetary prince, long time ago. Every 4th child born was invisible, sort of, or at least invisible to normal mortals, evolutionary will creatures such as you, me, anyone else. Primary, midway, primary, secondary, I forget. I mean, I forget. I mean, I could look it up. It's not hard to find in the Urantia book. All the details are given, but it could be. I think there's like if there's 1,000 primary and then 50,000 secondary midway creatures from whatever process that was. I forget, but it's in the book. So what amused me about this sentence, primary midwayers serve as celestial entertainers for the planetary prince. So straight up, there's another example of how what humans do, whether live and in person or in lore or in literature, whatever, in live and in person, whatever humans do, human evolutionary will creatures on this planet, it's symbolically represented in the spirit realm, the celestial realm, the spirit world, the spirit worlds, the spirit reality. So just like, we have that idea of court jester doing entertainment for the king. Apparently, that's exactly what they're saying here, is that the primary midwayers 250,000 years ago and longer ago than that were the entertainers for the planetary prince, whatever that meant to them at that time. Paper 39 is the seraphic hosts. The seraphic hosts. Paper 30, bestowal attendants. Paradise of Onals, such as myself, but not creator sons, when on a bestowal mission, are always accompanied by a corps of 144 bestowal attendants. I am accompanied by a corps of 144 bestowal attendants. I, as a Paradise of Onal son, currently on this earth, Urantia, living as a magisterial son in a bestowal mission, am accompanied by 144 bestowal attendants, Seraphim. The Seraphim are the highest of the 7 revealed orders of local universe angels. They function in 7 groups. One of those groups is bestowal attendants. So yes, my bestowal attendants are Seraphim and Supreme Seraphim. The number 1, paper 39, section 1 is Supreme Seraphim. So I am accompanied by a corps of 144 Supreme Seraphim. So I, as a Paradise of Onal, not creator sons, not Michael of Nebadon, when they go on a bestowal mission, they only do it once. Creator sons of a local universe only live as a human being once, born of woman as a baby, only one time in their career. But I, as a Paradise of Onal, on a bestowal mission currently right now on Urantia, as myself, am accompanied by 144 Supreme Seraphim, bestowal attendants. These 144 angels are the chiefs of all other sun spirit ministers who may be associated with a bestowal mission. There might possibly be legions of angels subject to the command of an incarnated Son of God on a planetary bestowal, but all these seraphim would be organized and directed by the 144 bestowal attendants. There might possibly be legions of angels subject to my command, and all these angels, if so, would be organized and directed by the 144 Supreme Seraphim. There might be legions of angels subject to my command. And if so, these seraphim are organized and directed by the 144 bestowal attendants. There might possibly be legions of angels subject to the command of myself as an incarnated son of God on a bestowal avenal mission here on Urantia currently, as a man born of woman. If those legions of angels are subjected to my command as I am on a bestowal mission currently, all these seraphim would be organized and directed by 144 supreme seraphim. The first order of seraphim and the highest order of seraphim higher orders of angels, Supernaphim and Sekanaphim, might also form a part of the attending host. And though their missions are distinct from those of the Seraphim, all these activities would be coordinated by the bestowal attendants. So what they're saying there is Supernaphim and Sekanaphim come from the central universe, the Paradise Havona system. So they are a higher order of being than the Seraphim, who are created for this world, or they're created for all evolutionary worlds of human evolutionary will beings. I would suppose they're created directly on this world. That's what I would suppose. I don't know if they say that or not in the book. I don't know if they say that or not, where exactly Seraphim are created by the universe mother spirit. But if they do, they do. If they don't, my belief would be that they are created directly on this planet. So as I am on a bestowal mission currently on Urantia, if there are any Supernaphim and Sekanaphim that are part of the attending host for myself, then their activities, although their missions would be distinct from those of the Seraphim, their activities would be coordinated by the 144 Supreme Seraphim. So if there are any Supernaphim, Sekanaphim, who are also a part of the attending host for myself as a magisterial vonal son on a bestowal mission, their missions, their activities would be coordinated by the bestowal attendants. So amongst the legions of angels subject to my command as an incarnated son of God on a planetary bestowal, there may also be Supernaphim and Sekanaphim, though, whose missions are distinct from those of the Seraphim, would be coordinated in terms of their activities by the 144 Supreme Seraphim, the bestowal attendants. The bestowal attendants are completion Seraphim. They have all traversed the circles of Seraphington and have attained the seraphic core of completion. So the Supreme Seraphim have been to paradise, met the Universal Father, just like a human evolutionary will creature such as you, me, any human evolutionary will creature goes to mansion worlds and then higher worlds. Eventually, the central universe meets the Universal Father and the other two members of the Trinity and becomes a finaliter. So what they're saying here is the Supreme Seraphim have already done that entire path. So a Seraphim starts out exactly as a human evolutionary will being does on a planet like this, like Urantia, stationed right here on Urantia. They start out here and they do the same journey as a evolutionary human will creature. And they have been further especially trained to meet the difficulties and to cope with the emergencies associated with the bestowals of the sons of God for the advancement of the children of time. Supreme Seraphim have been trained to meet the difficulties and to cope with the emergencies associated with my bestowal as a son of God. The Supreme Seraphim have been trained to meet with the difficulties and to cope with the emergencies associated with my bestowal. The Supreme Seraphim have been especially trained to meet the difficulties and to cope with the emergencies associated with my bestowal as an avenal magisterial son bestowed on Urantia currently for Urantians. The Supreme Seraphim have been trained to meet the difficulties and to cope with the emergencies associated with my bestowal for Urantians. My bestowal as an avenal magisterial son currently on Urantia. Such seraphim have all achieved paradise and the personal embrace of the second source and center, the eternal Son. They don't say it here, but I would assume they also receive the embrace of the infinite Spirit and the universal Father. They don't say that in words directly, apparently. So Seraphim equally crave assignment to the missions of the incarnated sons, such as myself, and attachment as destiny guardians to the mortals of the realms. The latter is the surest seraphic passport to paradise, while the bestowal attendants have achieved the highest local universe service of the completion seraphim of paradise attainment. Seraphim equally crave assignment to my mission and attachment as destiny guardians of the mortals of Urantia. Seraphim equally crave assignment to my mission as an incarnated son of God, a magisterial avonal son on a bestowal mission currently, and they also just as equally crave attachment as destiny guardians to the mortals of the realms. So an angel, a seraphim, who's just starting out. This is described a tremendous amount in the Urantia book, but an angel who's just starting out on this planet, Urantia, if they so a mortal, a human being, mortal evolutionary will creature such as you, me, anyone who has achieved the third psychic circle. That's another topic. There are 7 psychic circles to go through. I believe human evolutionary will creatures start at number 7 and progress to number 1 if they achieve number 3 in terms of development as a being. If your character is good in terms of love, goodness, etc., and you grow in morality to the point where you're at the 3rd psychic circle, then you receive a personal seraphic guardian who will accompany you for the rest of your path to the Universal Father himself, to meet the Universal Father, to receive the embrace of the Universal Father eventually, after a lot of time goes by. So The surest path for a seraphim to also meet the members of the Trinity, the deities, the members of the Trinity, the surest path for them is to attach themselves to a mortal evolutionary will creature who is making the same journey.